Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong-Alfares with economics news of the day. The FAA lifted restrictions on U.S. airline flights to and from Israel's Ben Gurion Airport, canceling an earlier notice to airmen that inspired European carriers to follow suit. The Aviation Authority said its decision was based on assessment of new information and measures taken by the Israeli government. The so-called NOTAM affected 3 U.S. airlines, Delta, U.S. Airways, and United Airlines. The original notice was issued in response to a rocket shot by Hamas that landed about a mile from the international airport. The Iron Dome counter-rocket defensive system has so far prevented hits of over 400 rockets aimed at populated areas. We have more on the story in a report following these headlines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday welcomed former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg at Ben Gurion Airport before the FAA lifted restrictions. Bloomberg flew to Israel in an effort to alleviate fears of air safety in southern Israel after the FAA banned flights to Tel Aviv. Already hurt by tourist cancellations, the decision by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration banning flights to Tel Aviv increased economic pressure on Israel. Bloomberg said Ben Gurion Airport is probably the safest airport in the whole world to fly in and out of.
And the truth is, what you wanted to demonstrate by coming here is that this airport is open, that you can fly in and out of Israel. We protect this airport. There's no reason whatsoever for the mistaken FAA decision to instruct American planes not to come here. I think you're proving it by coming here. Where I stand, the Prime Minister of Israel, where you stand, anybody can stand. I think this decision only rewards the Hamas terrorists for nothing. You can fly in and out of Israel, and I hope that the FAA rescinds this decision as soon.
Within hours after foreign airlines suspended flights to Israel, demand on Israeli carriers and their airfares skyrocketed. According to a survey by Israeli financial daily The Marker, the price of tickets on El Al rose by tenths of percent to as much as 150%. A round-trip ticket for a week to London nearly doubled from $820 to $1,520. A two-way trip to New York rose to $2,750 from $1,670, and a return trip to Paris jumped to $1,800 from $685. El Al denied the price hike was connected to the cancellation of flights of U.S. and European carriers. Mobile phone apps and websites show a change in consumer behavior as more Israelis stay home amid the ongoing war with Hamas. Israeli markets are generally buzzing with life, but since the start of Operation Protective Edge, many consumers prefer to stay home. Pango, an app that lets people pay for parking from their mobile phones, saw a national drop in usage of 8%, and in some places as much as 72%. Habaita, an e-commerce website, said its sales had increased some 75%. Report following the headlines has more details.
Of course, when such a situation is happening, we see a decrease in the economic environment. You can see that there are some delegations that canceled their visit or postponed their visits. However, this is a period at the end of July, and we are entering August, where it is naturally a more slow. It's a slow period of time in the economic environment of Israel. We are doing our utmost to make sure that people who want to continue to do business with Israel will have a safe and positive attitude toward doing that.
In the last 24 hours, the FAA and a growing list of European airlines suspended flights to and from Israel, adding economic pressure to Israel. The FAA has since lifted its restrictions, bringing some relief for the ailing tourism industry. I-24 News correspondent Daniel Roth has more.
On Tuesday, in the wake of the first direct hit by a rocket on the center region of Israel, the Federal Aviation Authority suspended for 24 hours all scheduled flights from the U.S. to Tel Aviv. Many Canadian and European flights soon followed suit. The decision was made because the rocket fell not far from Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport. The cancellations took passengers by surprise.
I came to fly and my flight is delayed, and then it was canceled, and then there was a bomb alarm. The whole airport rushed into the bomb shelters, and it was terrifying.
The suspension of air traffic during Israel's high season could have serious effects. Last year, 3.5 million visitors came to Israel, a 3% increase from the year before, and there has been a steady increase for years, according to Israeli news site Ynet. So far, 30% of visitors who had planned to visit in July and August have cancelled, according to the Israel Hotel Association. The body says that the expected loss for the tourism industry is $500 million for the third quarter.
It's a bad decision. It's not good for Israel, it's not good for the tourists, it's not good for the economy of Israel. It's a very bad decision. You see that what's happened after they take the decision. All the other carriers in Europe took the same decision. So I think that it's not good for Israel.
The FAA reversed their decision less than 48 hours after the initial announcement, and the whole situation leaves one thing clear. Economic pressure plays some role in how events unfold as violence continues and the death toll mounts.
We're joined now by I-24 News journalist Daniel Roth to discuss the economic consequences of the recent rocket shot near Ben Gurion Airport. Daniel Roth. So, Ben Gurion Airport has always been within firing range from the West Bank. Sure. What exactly is the sudden concern now? The Iron Dome has intercepted rockets left and right. What is the real issue here?
Well, look, at the core of this, it's not really a question of physical safety. From the West Bank, cooperation between Israeli security and Palestinian security has led to almost no chance of that situation. B, from Gaza, they don't have guidance systems for these rockets. It's basically at random where they land. They don't exactly know so precisely how they're hitting things. So the safety concern is really an aside, and perhaps inspired by last week, the rocket shooting down the Malaysian flight, killing nearly 300 people, right. And the FAA saying, wait a minute, we don't want to be responsible for another situation like that. Right. The real issue here is that what's actually being affected is economy. It's what's actually being affected is that people are, maybe if they were teetering on the edge of not coming, are not going to come. We've already seen, as I said in the report, 30% decrease, cancellations rather, for July and August because of this conflict. Right. So we're already seeing that, and when people hear news that the FAA is not letting planes fly, that European carriers aren't, that Canadian carriers aren't, suddenly people take it very seriously, and I spoke to a lot of people outside of here in North America and Europe in the last few days who said, despite all of the protests we're seeing and all of the talk in the media, people really started to pay attention the other day when this rocket came near the airport and the airplanes stopped.
Is it because the rocket came near the airport, or is it because the FAA actually restricted flights?
It's because the FAA restricted the flights. That's at the core of this issue. It was not, again, the rocket landed very close to the airport. I was there moments afterwards reporting on it. It was dangerous, sure, but as we've said, the guidance systems don't allow them. They don't have guidance systems for these rockets. The chances are so low. What we're talking about are safety concerns causing economic impacts, not actual safety issues.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on. Thanks, Daniel Roth. You're going to stay with us. The effects of Hamas's rocket attacks on the Israeli economy are clear to anyone who has gone to a shopping mall or restaurant in Israel over the past 2 weeks. But some companies have benefited from this situation. I-24 News correspondent Anthony Lasmi has the story.
Since the fire in the south escalated 2 weeks ago, many locals changed their shopping habits, deserting large supermarkets in the outskirts of cities. Frightened by the shelling of rockets, residents choose to shop locally or use online delivery services. Delivery orders in the area nearly doubled, and a supermarket chain extended an offer of free shipping to 62 additional communities around Gaza.
We are witnessing increasing of deliveries. We are doing around twice as we are doing in usual. People from Tel Aviv came here to help us, volunteer to be here. Our people, the people that I work here, make me very proud.
Rami, 35, is one of the delivery men volunteering to deliver to communities very close to the Gaza Strip in areas that endure continuous bombings.
There's a lot of bombing here, So from time to time we need to start to pull over and take a cover, from the missiles. This is the reason that a lot of people are afraid.
As we continued driving, we were stopped by the police, since the area's central road was closed for civilian movement and is only used for troops.
We don't have permission to go inside here. So they are looking in the maps in another way to get there.
I can go from Gvulot Junction. Are you with me?
The question is whether it's closed as well.
First, we have 2 villages we can pass through. Secondly, there's an option...
Back on the road after a 40-kilometer detour to reach our first delivery destination.
This is Zikim, you see here? Take a look. From Zikim, they come from the sea. All the terrorist people come from the sea. We hope in the end of this mission, we have a quiet life here. But for a long time, not for a short time. Because even that you have a ceasefire, there's people sending missiles to our cities. And
we arrived at Kibbutz Talmei Eliyahu, located 5 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, and met Ira, a local resident happy to receive her groceries.
I don't have any choice but to be home. I'm afraid to drive on the roads. On the roads, you have nowhere to hide.
But while the danger of rockets is something the locals learn to deal with, Ira is more frightened by the threat of Hamas tunnels.
When you have a code red siren, you know what to expect. With the tunnels, you don't know what to anticipate. You don't know when or where or how much.
Rami has made 5 deliveries this morning, 2 in Sderot and 3 on the outskirts of Gaza. He does not count the hours and detours. It's all part of the chain of solidarity that exists in Israel in times of war.
today it was quieter than yesterday, but as you will see, they bomb us for a few times. We're trying to make the best of it. When I see their happiness, their smile, I smile also.
And now for a discussion on the connection between Hamas and Qatar in Media Watch. So Daniel, there have been allegations lately of Qatar being the main financial benefactor of Hamas. Is this correct?
That essentially it came out first in Hebrew press, and now it's been trickling out to English language press and others. Shimon Peres, who's leaving the presidency now, made a public accusation saying Qatar has been funding Hamas's rocket buying and tunnel building. Now, conspicuously, I didn't come across any admission from Qatar yet, any sort of acknowledgement of these accusations.
Right.
But what we do know is that, you know, in the Jerusalem Post, for example, in early 2013, just after the last escalation of violence between Hamas and Israel, Qatar had committed to spending hundreds of millions of dollars in building infrastructure and all of this stuff. The question is, A, did that money or resource go to building these things? And B, if so, did Qatar know about it?
I mean, basically what's at play here, presumably, is that, I mean, Iran has always been said to be the main supporter of Hamas. Is that essentially the main reason why Qatar is positioned in this situation?
Well,
to take away the influence of Iran in the Middle East?
It may be. It may be that that's the intention coming from there. It may be that Qatar has drawn the ire of people from the West, and so they are sort of under the gun, under the spotlight. Mm-hmm. A lot is unclear about this story still. What we know is that an enormous amount of money has gone into Gaza towards rebuilding after Cast Lead, rebuilding after Pillar of Defense.
There's also been reports about there being many more millionaires sort of made from this construction boom that we've seen, no pun intended. But at the same time, I mean, there are also allegations that the leadership of Hamas is taking a lot of the money to itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's also these reports coming out, and you know, in reading these reports, like for example in Ynet, they have this sort of expose on the leaders of Hamas living it up in Doha and places like this. The one thing I thought of was, this isn't so unique. That's not a unique thing about Hamas. There's lots of things about Hamas to talk about, but that the leadership is living it up while common people have to do common people things is quite normal.
In this part of the world as well.
Yes, and really worldwide, from Israel to the U.S. to Qatar to anywhere, you have these class differences that the leadership is sort of sitting above and not really living the lives that the people they're supposedly leading are living.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Daniel Roth, I-24 News correspondent, for joining us. That's a wrap for us at The Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports. It's I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Chalmers. Thanks for watching us, and join us again next week for more on The Economy.